Now, Sam Stein, senior politics editor for the Huffington Post, and Ezra Klein, editor-in-chief of Vox.com and MSNBC analyst. Both of you, Sam, what more could possibly be achieved or learned through this select committee?
It's a good question. I wouldn't, totally dismiss the importance of having investigations into this. Two major things have happened because of prior investigations. The first is that we've sort of understood the holes that we've had in our embassy security system. Second is that we've understood the problems that we've had in streamlining requests for more security and the lack of intelligence on the ground in places like Libya. So there are good things that can be generated from these types of investigations. The problem in this case is that the topic's been a bit beaten to death, and it seems like the incentives on the part of the investigators are purely. And so I wouldn't be surprised if if the Democrats in the House just decided not to go along with it, because it seems like the objectives are already written out and that they're basically there to figure out if the Obama administration had this great elaborate cover-up.
Yeah, I mean, Sam's putting his finger on it, Ezra. If this is an inquisition, how should the Democrats even deal with the formation of the new committee?
Well, they've had some talk of boycotting. To be honest, I have no idea how Democrats should deal with the committee. It is become something that is a little bit hard almost to talk about fairly, because we've stopped talking about Benghazi some time ago. We're talking about talking points at this point. And you heard in all the clips you played, they didn't talk a lot about how these committees were, how the select committee was going to find out what the holes in the security were. They didn't talk about how the committee would save future lives by figuring out how to better fortify diplomatic outposts. What they talked about was how the Obama administration had treated them, how forthcoming it had been, what emails it had put forward. This is really this is really generated off of very, very serious anger at the Republican side on how they feel the Obama administration has tried to stonewall their investigation. But their investigation is no longer meant to uncover anything but that stonewall. It's kind of an infinitely meta loop.
Yeah, and I mean, Sam, I understand that, and I would never diminish what our colleagues do at Meet the Press. There are very important interviews conducted there, but there is something weird. Take that out of it. There's something weird about the entire investigation hinging on the preparation that went into one television interview.
Sure. Well, yes, I wouldn't say it's just about the television interview on Sunday. There are other sort of weird things on the side. I guess you would dispute, some people would dispute weird. But for instance, where the president was as the attack took place seems to be a fascination of Republicans right now, whether he was in the Oval Office, whether he was in the Situation Room, something like that. Whether or not a call to stand down ever took place, it's been litigated and found out, I believe, not to be true. So there are other issues that are part of the purview of the investigators here, but it is predominantly centered on what Susan Rice said on that Sunday morning and why she said it. And what was fascinating is I just picked up the I looked up the New York Times article from the day after the attack, September 12th, 2012, and some of the information in there was basically what Susan Rice went on to say on Sunday, which is that there was an attack that was generated, there was a demonstration that was generated off of that video, and the attackers took advantage of that demonstration, and they were interviewing people on the ground. So if you look back at the reporting at that time, it didn't seem like Susan Rice's talking points were that wildly off base, but we are relitigating this a year and a half after the fact, and it does seem to be sort of the main focus of what Republicans are going after.
Right, and it is strange. It's hard to think of another area where you have this kind of real political obsession that has already been tested and failed in a major political way in a campaign. And so when you think back to the president staring down Mitt Romney, they had the same intellectual problem in that debate that they have now, which is, what is the scandal? Is it the talking points? Is it the word choice? Because you look pretty crass when you focus on that and not the security and the lives lost. I do want to play it. People remember it, but let's look at that exchange with Governor Romney.
It was not a spontaneous demonstration. Is that what you're saying?
Please proceed, Governor.
I want to make sure we get that for the record, because it took the president 14 days before he called the attack in Benghazi an act of terror.
Get the transcript.
He did, in fact, sir. So let me call it an act of terror.
Can you say that a little louder, Candy?
He did call it an act of terror.
Ezra, is that a moment that Republicans want to relive on a grand scale?
But it is a moment, no, but it is a moment that powers all of this. Republicans look at that and they don't see Mitt Romney getting destroyed, although that certainly was part of that moment for them. What they see is the mainstream media colluding with the Obama administration, or in that case the Obama campaign, to brush us all under the rug. Part of the fury here, part of the reason this thing refuses to die, is that Republicans kind of have a where there's smoke, there's fire approach to it. You know, there was just this new email that came out from Ben Rhodes through a FOIA request. It said nothing different at all, but the fact that it hadn't been immediately turned over and the fact that the media seemed to be okay with that, it feeds all this. There's a very deep persecution here, and I think it speaks to the Republican Party's national structure being at this point a relatively weak structure. You were talking about how it's difficult to come up with another example of a party having this kind of obsession connected to no discernible policy outcome. And it's because it's a party that is currently chasing an emotion and a desire for satisfaction of a fury it has. You typically will have a party establishment be a little bit more goal-oriented in that. But at this point, in order to fire up the base, in order to keep the party together, in order to keep people doing something and excited about something at a time when there's going to be no affirmative action done, trying to satisfy this emotional need for closure on this and for some kind of retribution off of moments exactly like that one has become a real uniting force in the GOP.
Yeah, I think that's well put, Ezra, and all I can add to this is that perhaps Governor Romney in his free time can testify before the Select Committee, and we can all relive the Meadow Loop again and again. Ezra Klein and Sam Stein, thanks for your time tonight.
Thanks, Ari.
And coming up.